Holy crap, you really can't argue this. Cobra Kai is everything that Disney Star Wars isn't.
I was in full vomit mode when that trailer came on.
Renegade Online.
Anybody finished up Cobra Kai? For those of you that have not watched the show, I would highly encourage it, especially if you were fans of the original Karate Kid. And again, you guys know I don't do reviews, and I'm not going to go into a detailed review here. That's not what this is about. I don't review shows. I don't review films. I talk about them from the numbers side, and I talk about how I think, they may have an impact from a cultural standpoint. And what I want to impart to everybody in the audience is this. Cobra Kai is incredibly well done. It has found something that most other studios could only hope to do. I mean, the concept of this show, Cobra Kai, which follows Johnny Lawrence later in life, the quote-unquote bad guy from the Karate Kid in 1984. This all started as a joke on How I Met Your Mother, a sitcom 15 years ago now, where Barney Stinson, played by Neil Patrick Harris, sitting in the bar one night saying, no, Johnny was actually the good guy. Daniel was the bad guy. And he goes through this whole explanation, and you watch him do it. It's like, holy crap, you really can't argue this. It was actually brilliant. It was really brilliant. So anyway, from that, Cobra Kai was born. That's really how it started. Now, let me tell you what. You watch this thing, and for all the jokes that we make about movie studios and everybody else trying to do reboots and rebootquels and new sequels and redos and blah, 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 blah. They try to go for the nostalgia bait, and it usually falls flat on its face. And somehow, the people that put together Cobra Kai managed to pull off. And remember, they started this with a few $1 million. They made this for YouTube Red, which doesn't even exist anymore. I remember this because I signed up for YouTube Red just to watch this Cobra Kai thing. And they made that first season for a few $1 million. And I mean, really next to nothing. How is it to me that Disney has sunk $10 billion into Star Wars? And the people that made Cobra Kai figured out how to do exactly what Disney was supposed to do with Star Wars for less than 1/10 or 1/100th of 1% of what Disney spent. Because Cobra Kai is everything that Disney Star Wars isn't. And it's incredible. They figured out a way to take an amazingly fondly remembered 1980s IP and really continue it, pass it to a new generation. They paid respect and homage to the original characters, which are still the heroes of the show.
And that, sir, is how they did it. You just nailed it. They paid respect.
That's it. I mean, it was a little bit of an open-ended question there, but that's the point, is that they managed to do this. They managed to build on what was. They managed to create something that a lot of people had walked away from, but they still had a good audience out there. And this is the most important thing. They built an enormous new audience. It got so big that Netflix had to get their hands on it and made it even bigger and bigger and bigger. Quite literally, Disney did the exact opposite with Star Wars. They took something that was huge and then tried to make it for a new audience and then murdered it in the process and pissed away billions of dollars doing it. Whereas Netflix has gone in the opposite direction and made something that is one of the biggest hits they've ever had for a fraction of the cost because they treated everything with respect. They really had a good writing team. They really didn't give a crap about diversity, equity, and inclusion. They had a lot of diversity, quote unquote, on the show, but they didn't make it about diversity.
Well,
and they just gave us good characters. Culture.
Well, no, they decided to be burdened by what had been.
Oh, yeah, they were unburdened by what had been burdened previously with the burdening of the thing.
Well, okay, that's great too, though, because the way that Disney has viewed this largely is that they are burdened with a legacy that they think they can beat because they view it as intrinsically flawed. And so these other studios, they don't view this, they don't view their IPs this way, at least if they're successful. So Cobra Kai is treating Karate Kid as if it actually matters.
Yeah.
And as if there's a reason that it was successful. By the way, it's not just Disney that manages to screw up, right? So think about the way that Paramount treated, and by the way, we've bragged about Paramount.
But nobody does it as spectacularly as Disney does.
Well, think about the way Paramount did with Halo, right?
Amazon's doing a great job with Rings of Power, bro.
All right, I'll give you that one.
But Disney consistently does this with franchises because Disney thinks that they're above everyone else. And that's the problem.
It's the exception to the rules in many cases, right? Like we've only had a handful of these revival movies or shows where you can actually say, now that was decent. You got Cobra Kai, you got Top Gun Maverick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most people enjoyed Beetlejuice, but I'll be one that said that I don't think it was that great. I think it was horrible. Tom,
I'll take you back to the theater. I'm going to show you what was special about it. Just hang tight.
I tried watching it again in 4K and it looks even worse, man.
Michael Keaton made it hard, though. He was so terrible in interviews. I don't know what's up with that guy, but man. All right, go ahead.
Anyhow, I'm just saying, like, yeah, there has only been a few of these revivals that have worked. And Cobra Kai is almost like an exception to the rule. And it's not because, yes, it is because they paid homage to the original, but it's also because they looked at it from a new perspective. And the new perspective wasn't on the original. It's actually taking a character from the original. It wasn't necessarily doing, the Maleficent or the Cruella de Vil kind of thing to it. It was actually genuinely looking at Johnny wasn't necessarily a bad guy. If you really look at it and step back. Yeah. He had a poor teacher. He had a little snot who kept getting in the way of him trying to talk to his girlfriend.
And all of that was built up in the 1984. And again, he wasn't like some world-ending villain. He was just was a high school bully. He was a teenage kid, right? So all of this, and let me tell you what and again, I'm not going to give spoilers.
He wasn't even that much of a bully, to be honest with you, in hindsight, if you look back.
Yeah,
because Daniel inserted himself from the start. See, that's the thing is they are correct about that. Yeah. Like, so I mean, there is a good point to be made there that Daniel got put his nose into business that it really wasn't his.
Yeah. But I will say this, and I'm not going to do spoilers on it, but again, the point of this was it goes to show that it doesn't take billions of dollars like Disney has blown on Star Wars to do something right. All it takes is care. The writing team cared. The people involved in the show cared. And they really made something special. And the last 5 episodes of the whole series that just dropped 2 days ago on Netflix were outstanding. I loved it. I loved the way it ended. I was really curious as to how they were going to handle certain things in the last couple of episodes. If who was really going to wind up being front and center at the end, down to the uniforms that were being worn, and they did it right. It was so good. It was so perfect, and it's one of the few times I've walked away from a show like this, start to finish, and have been thoroughly pleased all the way through. And the ending, I'm sitting there applauding and cheering, and I'm like, yes, this is how it should be done. And it goes to show that it really did stick the landing. And it goes to show that Hollywood's capable of doing this with the right people. But if you go out and you hire people to say, well, you know what? Imagine if Kathleen Kennedy had been in charge of Karate Kid. Okay.
No.
We need to make Karate Kid, but we need to make it for girls now.
I can't even. Come on, man. Don't do that to us.
And we.
Well, luckily for us, they already had that. It was called The Next Karate Kid.
Right. And it didn't do well.
Well. And even though the minor spoiler, I will say that was the one thing I feel like the series did drop the ball on and not at least acknowledging or bringing in Julie at some point. But that being said, I didn't care for so much of the bloatedness of the Saikai Taikai tournament, but otherwise the last season was pretty good. I'm glad it also didn't lead into a teaser for the movie. That's the only other spoiler I'll give away.
Yeah, no, that's been talked
yeah.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, so these are things that have already been discussed.
The movie, I look, as somebody saw as part of my suffering for Captain Anti-America, I got to see the trailer for that upcoming film.
Oh, I didn't realize it already came out. Now this is the one where it's you get
Kung
Ralph
Fu.
Macchio and Jackie Chan, and they're all together, right?
Yeah.
They try to. It's like, oh, we screwed up with the Kung Fu Kid with Jackie Chan because it wasn't karate. There was no karate in the whole movie, which was the stupid part. And so somehow I said, I'm waiting to see how they get these two together. You know, it's like, okay, all of a sudden, like, there was no relationship when they rebooted this movie with Jackie Chan, who I love Jackie Chan, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, he's
but
good.
It's like all of a sudden, okay, they're in the same universe, worlds collide. Daniel LaRusso and Jackie Chan's character are going to get together in this. Please don't bring Will Smith's kid back.
Please.
Is he in this?
Dude, the trailer.
Not that I know of.
I was in full vomit mode when that trailer came on.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.